Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, January the 4th. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope everybody had a good celebration, a good time. And as we like to do on Sundays, let's say hello to our good friend George Rodriguez from South Texas. How was your Happy New Year, George?
It was fun, fattening like the Christmas holiday was, but
Right.
it's been fun.
Yeah. Between December 20th and January the 3rd or
The
4th.
sixth,
Yeah,
the
the
sixth,
6th. Yeah.
El Dia de
It's
los
not.
Reyes.
That's right. That's right. El Dia de los Reyes. That's coming up on the 6th. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, it's not a good week for diets. Not a good time for diets. I mean, there's
I'll tell you what's
ex-
really funny. What's really
yeah.
funny is I went to I went to the gym yesterday, and whereas Saturdays the gym is just kind of a ghost town, um, it was packed. I mean,
Yeah.
I've not seen it that packed in a year.
Well, it's everybody's resolution. I think the number one resolution in the country is I got to go to the gym.
And everybody was there.
So I bet they sell a ton of memberships
Oh my gosh.
for because a lot of people probably get them for Christmas
For
presents.
Christmas, yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, the
It was
gyms
packed.
are.
It was very packed.
I bet it was. Yeah. I know what you mean. First, the second day of the year is usually a big day for gym attendance. I'll
Yeah.
put it that way. Nobody misses the gym. Well, we got a lot to get into. It's been really an amazing 48 hours, 72 hours here with what happened in Venezuela. There's a lot of angles to that. Obviously, as everybody knows, we went in, we arrested Maduro, brought him back. He's in Brooklyn right now. But I want to get into some of the side issues that it raises. And but I want to begin with a couple of quick things. The Cowboys ended their season today, 7-9-1.
Painful, painful.
Yeah, that was a painful game to watch. I have to admit. And at one point, they were calling. I mean, they were dropping a flag. It seems every play. I mean,
No.
it's gotten. I'm not saying maybe the flags were justified, but I happen to think there's too many of them these days. Maybe
Uh,
I'm wrong, but
I just think it was just sloppy.
oh, that
I think that there were too many players who, at this point, on both teams, knew that that this was just a game. This was not. It didn't mean anything. They wanted to get it over real quick, I guess. But it was sloppy play because I just don't think that their minds were really, really in it. I don't think that
yeah,
they were.
you had that feeling.
Yeah.
You had that feeling that maybe more on the Cowboys side actually than.
Well, the disappointment on the Cowboys side has got to be big.
Oh yeah,
It's got to be
absolutely.
very big.
They're going to have to do something about the defense because if you take their offense, I mean, it's good. Their offense is good. They can win with that. But this is like that baseball team that scores a lot of runs, but nobody can pitch. That's kind of like what this team is like. You know, they can
Yeah.
put up runs, but they
All
can put
offense.
up.
But the sad thing was that today the offense wasn't even working. So
No, and a lot of that, I'm going to guess that a lot of that had to do with they were experimenting in the second half with the new quarterback, Milton. Well, not the new quarterback, but the younger quarterback. They're
yeah.
trying to figure out what he can do. And it seemed to me, at least, that they had some of the B team out there
Oh, definitely.
in the second half.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. They were very interested in checking who's going to be kept,
right.
who still has some ability to them, and giving some of these second string guys a chance to get out there and do something.
Yeah, I mean
I
that's
think
what it
it's
was, and
yeah,
I don't blame the coach for doing that. But I will say this, George, I got the feeling in the second half, not so much in the first half, but in the second half that the Giants wanted to win the game a heck of a lot more
oh
than the
gosh,
Cowboys
yes,
did.
yeah, they did. For them, it was pride.
Yeah, and well, they were what 3-13 or whatever,
Yeah, they
so
were
they
pretty
won their
proud.
fourth game, and the Cowboys lost their ninth. This is who would have believed any of this? See, this is you hear these things, and let me take you back 30 years ago. Would have been 1996. The Cowboys were going to their third Super Bowl in 4 years. They won that Super Bowl against the remember the Steelers. They won that Super Bowl. And if I had said to you February 1996 that the Cowboys are not going to be in another Super Bowl for the next 30 years, they're not even going to be in an NFC championship game. I mean, they've been in a couple of first round. I think one time they got to the second round, but they have not been in an NFC title game. Well, since that year they beat, I think it was Green Bay to get into that Super Bowl game. I mean, if I had said that to you 30 years ago, you would have laughed, and properly so. I mean, how do you just discount a team that has Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, and the great team that they have? How do you say this team is never going to win again? Well, that's exactly what happened, George. Incredible.
It's very, very sad. And again, it shows the mismanagement of a team. It shows it shows the way things can change in the NFL,
Right.
which I'm happy for. I mean, it makes the NFL very exciting. But on the other hand, you had institutionalized sports teams like the New York Yankees, who in the 30s and the 20s and 30s, because they had the most money, they dominated. Yeah. They used to dominate and dominate. So,
well, that was before the draft, where they could. Yeah,
that's not what we see nowadays. But it still hurts to watch your home team do so badly.
Yeah, they have not been in the game for a few years, and you feel bad because you're right. You want to win, but they have not been a good team for some time, and they have not made good personnel decisions. They've gone through a few coaches. Now this coach is just finished his first year.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he'll get a second year. I don't think he's the problem, nor do I think Dak Prescott is the problem. No, he's playing well.
Dak Prescott has a very high quarterback rating.
Sure.
He's got something like the second or the first highest. And so the issue is not Dak Prescott's ability to throw the ball or run a play. The problem is the defense. The problem is the ability to execute on the line that the offensive line that they have.
That's right.
It's not Dak Prescott, definitely.
No, he's not the one. And it reminds me of a little baseball story. Mark Teixeira, you met him the other day, I think.
Yes.
He's running for Congress here in Texas in the 21st
district. Right here in my district.
Yeah. So hopefully, I'm pretty sure he's going to be the next congressman down in Texas 21. Well, anyway, Mark Teixeira, who was a great player with the Rangers, came up through the Rangers and was a superstar, really. In 2007, the Rangers traded him to the Braves and picked up a stack of young players. And that deal kind of set the table for the World Series teams of 2010 and 2011. And if the Cowboys could do that with Prescott, yes. They did it with Herschel Walker, if you remember at one point.
Yep.
If that is out there, that possibility, I'm sure Dak would take it. Dak would love to play. Look, I know we got to get into the politics here soon, but Dak would love to play in a championship team, and he deserves to play in a championship team. He shouldn't be like the Ernie Banks of the Cowboys who never got to play in the World Series, So yes. Anyway, it's going to be an off season of some heavy questions. And the one thing you don't want to do is listen to Dallas Sports Talk Radio tomorrow because as they like to say, all the haters are going to be out tomorrow. Everybody's out to kill somebody tomorrow. Well, I have a quick memory, George, here before we get to the stories of the week. And that has to do with Barry Goldwater. I wrote a post today over at the American Thinker about Barry Goldwater. And it was, I was keeping, I always like to check on this day in history and all that kind of stuff. And I read that he was born January the 2nd, which would have been actually a couple of days ago or yesterday, or the 3rd, January the 3rd, something like that. He was born this week in 1909, and he lived pretty much the entire century. He died in 1998, so he lived a long, meaningful life. And I mentioned in my post that we remember Barry Goldwater, of course, as the man who was defeated by LBJ in 64. Big defeat that was. But I remember him because when we first came to the United States, which was exactly 1964, that was the first campaign that me as a kid would follow, not really follow because you didn't have as many options as you do now. But I remember sitting down with my father the night of the election, watching the results come in. And it wasn't a big shock that LBJ would win. But I always liked Goldwater. And then as time went by, there were a lot of Goldwater disciples in the Republican Party, one of them Reagan, of course. And it seems to me that Goldwater had a tremendous influence on the conservative movement after he was defeated. That defeat, even though it was painful, I'm sure for him, was great because after that, all these disciples of Goldwater went into politics, whether it was Reagan himself, whether it was Jack Kemp, lots of others who became prominent conservatives. I mean, I would argue even Bush and George W. Bush. All of those people were also from that team. So I've always been fond of Barry Goldwater because I'll never forget one time that he was on TV. He had a great line one time. He was on TV and he said, "Everywhere I go," to quote Goldwater, "everywhere I go, I hear people say, 'Hey, I voted for you.'" And he said, "I should ask for a recount because everybody voted for me, but yet I lost by 27 million votes or something." So anyway, that's just my memories of Goldwater. And you and I are roughly the same age, so I'm sure we kind of came up the same way politically. And any memories of Goldwater, George?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I remember my parents. That's probably second most, the second one, the second presidential election that I remembered. The one that I remember the most, or the first, not the most, but the first, was the Kennedy Nixon one. But then the Goldwater Johnson one, 4 years later. It struck me. It struck me because my parents were very much pro Goldwater. What really struck me was when I started studying it later when I was in college, 11 years later, that the amount of influence that he did have on the Republican Party. The Republican Party was pretty much split between Rockefeller and in his faction and the Goldwater grassroots conservatives. And I remember that split in 1980 really came to a head when Reagan came up and took the nomination. And I remember very, very strongly that there was a proposal given to Barry Goldwater directly that there be a co-presidency, that the vice president, whoever Reagan picked, was not going to be just relegated to a figurehead like most are, and that they wanted him to pick Gerald Ford, and they were going to be co-presidents. And of course, Goldwater rejected that. Reagan rejected that, and that's when he picked Bush.
Right.
But the influence that Goldwater had on the party, especially now that you can see now what has happened to the United States, it's tremendous.
No, it is, and he was the original anti-welfare state.
Yep.
I think he got a raw deal because he voted against the Civil Rights Act of '64. But I think
let me stop you there. I think I think that he and Nixon were victims of the first liberal media attacks. I mean, what we have seen now with MSNBC and CNN,
right,
is what started in that period. Because, in particular, in the Goldwater campaign, or against the Goldwater campaign, Johnson had that very, very famous
the Daisy ad.
The Daisy, the
little girl who was
playing with the daisies, and then the mushroom cloud.
Exactly.
And it scared people, and I think that I mean, nowadays probably people would just kind of go, But in those days, it was very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I think also one cannot over exaggerate the emotional vote for LBJ because of the assassination of JFK. And I also think that Goldwater probably, came across a little bit too rough, maybe.
Well, that was the other thing, is that both him and Nixon did
Yeah.
not know how to project on TV. They
Right.
did not know how to do it.
Yeah, and I just think it hurt without. I mean, I've always said that his timing was terrible in '64. I mean, if you think about timing. I mean, in politics, like in sports, whatever, there's a time. Just like there's a time to throw a perfect game, there's a time to win a presidential election. I think of Obama in that same light. I mean, the timing was perfect in 2008 for Obama, perfect for him. Uh, and then I think in many ways it was for LBJ in '64 too, and therefore bad timing for Barry Goldwater. But I've always, I read that book that he wrote, The Conscience of a Conservative. He wrote that back, I think, when he was this before he ran, and I just always found him to be so interesting, such an interesting fellow that you wish there were more people like him in politics today, because he was not. Let's just put it this way: he was not the kind of politician who's put together by a focus group, or the kind of politician who's put together by consultants. He was Barry Goldwater, take it or leave it, and I just thought that made him so special. And I love the idea that he was so frank. He'd tell you where he stands on things, and he had some votes that maybe 50 years later seemed different, but his opposition to the Civil Rights Act had nothing to do with civil rights.
No.
He just thought it was a state's issue. Now, maybe he was wrong about that. Okay. We can agree or disagree, but he took a position. He wasn't afraid of it. And that's what I liked about him. So Barry Goldwater, he almost lived the entire century from 1909 to 1998. You think about a life like that, where you live almost an entire century from the beginning to the end of everything that he saw. He was a little boy during World War One. He probably served in World War II, although I don't remember whether he did or didn't. Then he saw the Cold War. I mean, this man saw everything that happened in the 20th century, and that's not an experience everybody gets, George.
Yeah, I mean, he saw the century. He really did. He saw the
He
century.
really did. He was.
If he could see the result of the century, I think he'd be rolling in his grave at this point.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that he predicted that turned out to be right, 100% right. Well, let's get into the big story of the week, which is, the local politics here in Texas is always a factor, and I. One thing you mentioned before the program started that I think we should mention right now is that there is a real effort on the part of the media to make the Democrat primary super competitive, and also to make whoever wins a likely competitor or somebody who could actually win. I think the first one is true. It is going to be competitive, but I don't think whoever wins has a chance of winning. I really don't. Not when you look at the votes in Texas. But the media is really trying to somehow send out the message that, hey, the Democrats have a real shot at Texas, and they really don't. But anyway, that's the message. That's what I'm hearing, George.
Yeah, and besides the fact of them portraying that there is a very, very tight race, that Texas is winnable for the Democrats, they are also softening the messages or the character of Jasmine, while they are elevating the character of Tellerico. Yeah. They are doing everything to soften her comments, to make her appear very reasonable, and at the same time with Tellerico, I mean, they're quoting the Bible whenever he does. They're carrying he is carrying a very moral message constantly. Yeah. There is hardly any mention in both of them about abortion. If you've noticed, there's nothing that they're saying. There's nothing very much about men using women's bathrooms. There's nothing about the issue of transgenders, about the state paying for transgender operations. I mean, those things they're not saying very, very much about.
No, they're not talking much about economic policy or foreign policy. In the case of Tallarico, he always speaks in these moral terms. every time he gives a speech, he quotes the Bible.
Yeah.
And, I had no idea that the Bible was that. I mean,
That
look,
political?
obviously, yeah. I mean, I had no idea that you can go to the Bible that often. But he goes to the Bible, it seems like every 5 minutes, and he says, well, according to this and according to that, here's the answer. And I've always been very skeptical of a politician like that. I mean, it's one thing to say I'm a Christian or whatever, and this is the book that inspires me. Okay, we can do that. But when you're sitting there, whether it's food stamps, whether it's
and trying to create public policy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going, his latest one is he thinks we have too many billionaires.
Ah, yes.
Well, I mean, what is he proposing to eliminate billionaires? Because the last time I checked, they pay a lot of taxes. Billionaires pay a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
They create a lot of jobs. They are, well, in my opinion, we need more of them because they tend to have a positive. Obviously, some of them are nice people. Others are not nice people. But you can say that about poor people, too. Some
Exactly.
poor people, people are people. But I think we could use more billionaires and create more. Well, let me put it this way. We could use more people who become billionaires.
Correct.
Which is what somebody like, Elon Musk, that's what he did. I mean, he wasn't rich. He wasn't born rich, but he became successful. And Texas is full of people like that, George.
Yeah. And the whole idea of creating wealth is something that liberals just refuse to accept.
Right.
They believe that wealth is inherited, and therefore wealth has to be taken from those that inherited it and given to those that never did. And that's the whole Marxist socialist idea.
Right.
So therefore, for them to admit that wealth can be created, that there is a system that allows for the creation of an individual to create their own wealth, that would be admitting that the American dream works. And that's something they'll never do.
Yeah, what they have a hard time understanding is that you are legally able to become a billionaire if you create a company and that company becomes very successful. It employs thousands of people and you become a billionaire. Hey, that's the American dream, or at least we used to call it that. And that's what people do, and we need more people to do that. But he was recently giving a speech saying that our problem is not that, or something. I mean, I don't want to misquote him, but he was basically saying something along the lines that, we care more about billionaires than we do about poor people. Well, I don't know what he bases that on.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, that's an even better question. But he's not speaking for me when he says that. I care about everybody, but I don't have anything against a billionaire.
Again, it's that competition of classes. It's that class warfare,
right?
That they depend on. And when you ask yourself, where does that come from? Why do you have that? You get right back to the issue of it's socialist, it's Marxist, it's communist,
right? And another question that I would add, George, is where has it worked? I mean, can you name me a country where that kind of policy works?
Well, give me about 2 weeks. Let me see if I can.
Right. Let's see if you can. I can give you a very quick one. The country I came from, it didn't work there. And I think they're going to find that out in New York City too, real quick.
Oh my gosh! Well, he's already. Well, the mayor of New York has already said that they're raising the ticket prices of subways $3.
Oh, really?
So I thought, what happened to the idea that there was going to be free transportation?
Well, I guess free is for maybe some of the people who voted for him get to ride for free. Maybe that's it. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Venezuela. And so, it's interesting. I read something today, George, that the crude oil that comes out of Venezuela is a very rough type of oil. It's not, I'm not a technical oil person, but
it's not as pure. It's not
as liquid. Let me put it this way. It's not as liquid. We all remember that opening scene from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Or it's bubbling up, right?
Yeah, where he shoots in the ground and that liquid comes up. That's not the way their oil is, from what I understand. It's very rough. It's almost like I don't know what
mud.
The right word is.
It's
almost like mud, exactly.
Very much.
So it requires a certain refining process. And I bring this up because 6 of the refineries that process that kind of oil just happen to be in Texas. And there's a few others in Louisiana, but Texas apparently has the most of them. And I'm sitting there saying, my gosh, what potential there is, just not just for Venezuela, but also for Texas in this. And I am personally, obviously, I'm very happy that we arrested Maduro. That was totally consistent with that indictment that he had, and I'm very happy that we did it. I am very proud of the way the army or the armed forces acted. I mean, it was just almost like a perfect operation. I mean, pretty close to perfect, I would say. But the part that I find most interesting about this Venezuela operation, George, not because of Texas, but because of the country, and that is that Trump seems to understand the importance of oil in Venezuela, and the fact that you're going to need oil in Venezuela, not just to rebuild Venezuela. Like they got to they got to get cash from the oil in that country if they want to rebuild their prosperity. The prosperity is in the ground. It's called oil. And imagine the impact this is going to have on the oil prices around the world, which will drop with all that new supply coming in. And imagine the impact it could have on Texas refineries if we start processing that oil. So, I mean, this is to me fabulous that President Trump understands the importance of oil to reconstruct the situation in Venezuela, George.
I think it's been very, very. I mean, it was first of all, it was such a surprise once again. Like when they knocked out the nuclear refinery in Iran. You wake up and boom, so it's happened. And in this case, they literally picked up this dictator, took him out, brought him to the United States with minimum casualties for the United States, minimum damage to the United States, minimum damage to the country. And it was something that, apparently, according to the State Department, to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of the State Department, he said that they had already warned him and that they had given him three opportunities to leave. And the final third one, he just, laughed it off and left it at that. And there, boom, he's in custody now. The situation as far as their economy now is going to be very, very touchy. President Trump has said that he is going to that we are going to run the country. Yet we've got leftovers from the Maduro regime that are claiming that they're going to fight, that they're not going to allow it. The vice president of Venezuela, the chief of staff of the military, both of them are rattling their saber. I'm not sure what's going to happen with them. Mm-hmm. But the issue again, the refineries, when I lived in Houston, the refineries in Houston and Galveston and Beaumont are the ones that Port Arthur as well, that really, really, would benefit from this. Not to mention, of course, the jobs and everything else. However, right. We've already seen opposition. We've already seen local protests. One of the protests, in fact, the majority of the protests, should I say, are not only claiming that that this was an illegal kidnapping, right. But they're also saying that this is all about oil. And I think that they're going to try to use the environmentalist argument that, this is going to destroy the environment if we allow the refining of Venezuelan oil.
I think what's killing the environment in Venezuela is poverty.
No kidding.
That's what's killing the environment. I traveled to Venezuela before Chavez. So let's just say it was a while ago. And I was in Caracas. And Caracas was a lively city with lots of prosperity. Everywhere you looked, there was a restaurant, there were shops. I mean, I'm not saying that it was a perfect country. Nothing is. But the reality is that there was a lot of prosperity, and much of it, of course, came from the oil industry, because that's always been the source of their cash. And for the president to say, look, we want to make sure that comes back. I think that's a boom for Venezuela. I mean, if we get Venezuela pumping oil like they're capable to, my goodness, that means that um, we have an ally at the top of South America, an ally of the United States that is pumping oil, and we got the Chinese and the Russians out of the picture, because that's the other thing with Venezuela that people don't understand is that the China, and especially like Hezbollah and Iran and all of that, they were trying to get in there, and the Chavez Maduro governments allowed them to get in. They said, hey, come in, you're welcome here. And that created all kinds of geopolitical problems for the United States. So the elimination of this regime, and for it to be replaced with a not necessarily a pro-American, but a pro-Venezuelan regime, I think that's good for the region. And I think it also establishes the idea, George, that the United States is going to protect its backyard. I think that's important, George.
That is the most, to me, that's the most important part, that you're not going to let a bully get away with anything, and that you're going to make sure that they understand that you will take action, that other bullies will understand that you will take
right.
action.
That's right. So, I mean, I think that it was a good decision. Now, I do have one concern, and it's not a major concern, but I am concerned about who we are dealing with in Venezuela, because I don't trust that vice president. I mean, you cannot logically say that Maduro stole the election and then work with the vice president,
the new vice president, right?
Who was from
that vice president.
Exactly. So I hope that my hope is that we can put that, we can have some kind of a system whereby the guy who won the election, Mr. Gonzalez, can be put as president. And then you work with Mr. Gonzalez, because he is an ally of the United States. And then you work with him and you say, look, we're going to help you with the oil. And I think that's, in my opinion, the best solution for Venezuela right now, to have Mr. Gonzalez in power, and he can serve out whatever term he was supposed to serve out, and then have elections in the future whenever they were supposed to be. But he's, in my opinion, he's not the most charismatic man in the world. I'll give you that. But he is, I think, the best choice to put somebody in there that ahead of time is anti-Chavez or anti-Maduro, and will work with the United States, George.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You've got to, you certainly can't leave any vestiges, anybody who is associated with the Chavez and Maduro faction, leave them in there, because all they'll do is cause more problems. So
yeah,
right.
Now, one interesting thing, George, and you mentioned it in that video that you were distributing, that you recorded, and that is the reaction of some of our friendly Democrats. And I just find this to be comical. It reminds me, I have to confess, that it reminds me of Iraq in this respect. They're not identical to Iraq. I don't see an analogy to Iraq, but only in the political reaction. Back in the late 80s, well, I guess that would have been the late 90s. In 1998, President Clinton signed into law the Iraq Liberation Act. And the Iraq Liberation Act was basically a law that said it is the foreign policy of the United States to have regime change in Iraq. That's President Clinton who signed that. That's not Bush, Trump. That was President Clinton who signed that. And then he had the Vice President Gore on TV explaining why it was important for us to change the regime and the risk that it brought to the United States. Then Bush gets in. Bush decides we got to take him out. He represents a threat after 9/11. And now Bush is the one who is not respecting the Constitution. And here again, we come to the Venezuela situation. You can go on YouTube, and I watched some of these today. And there's Chuck Schumer back in 2000 saying that Trump wasn't doing enough to take out Maduro.
Yep.
There is Senator Murphy back in not long ago saying he's not doing enough. Why are we keeping him in power? Why aren't we getting him out? So Trump decides to get him out. And now all of a sudden, Trump is a dictator. Trump is violating the. I mean, these people are crazy.
a comment by AOC, by Ocasio-Cortez last night, that that Trump had kidnapped Maduro. I thought that was the height of silliness. And I mean, again, it shows their hypocrisy. It shows their stupidity and hypocrisy, because I'm not sure which it is. It's probably both. But that they can say these outrageous, outlandish things while forgetting that they said the opposite not so long ago.
Right. And how was he? How were we supposed to arrest him other than kidnapping him? I mean, I'm sitting here. So what were they? They thought we were he was gonna turn himself in. I mean, so again, these people, they're not serious, George. And that's what worries me. That you can have a legitimate. I mean, you can have a serious person can say, look, I don't think it's right for the president to use unilateral military force. And I was critical of Obama when he did it. I was critical of Clinton. I was critical of Biden. And now I am critical of Trump. No, you can have an honest person say that, a person who's consistent say that. And I may disagree with him, but at least the guy's consistent. But this idea that when Obama does it or Clinton does it, it's okay. I mean, you remember Clinton and the war in Bosnia and Serbia?
Yes.
Did he go to Congress for that one?
I don't recall that happening.
No, I don't either. Do you recall Obama going to Congress for the involvement?
I don't recall LBJ going to Congress in Vietnam.
Well, the Tonkin resolution, but that was not exactly no. I don't know of anybody who voted for the Tonkin resolution. Well, I shouldn't say I not on a personal basis. I mean, not knowing, but I'm pretty sure from readings that I've done that not a single member of Congress on either party voted for the Tonkin resolution on the assumption that we were going to have 500,000 troops on the ground 4 years later.
Yes.
I don't think, I mean, that was strictly a resolution for the attack in the Gulf of Tonkin. And then it became, of course, the basis for the Vietnam War, which I always thought, Lyndon Johnson made a huge mistake. He should have gone back to Congress and say, look, I need to go further. And you need to give me, he probably would have gotten it. Back then, but I think the Gulf of Tonkin resolution was not. And by the way, you probably remember this. Maybe you were in Washington when this happened, but I always thought that both President Bush, 41 and 43, I thought they were real straight shooters when they went to Congress and said, "Give me a resolution."
That's right,
and forced everybody to vote on it. I mean, I thought they were straight shooters with that respect. And whether we went into Afghanistan or Iraq or Kuwait under the first Bush, it was always with a resolution.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got to give him credit for doing that. But anyway, these critics of President Trump, George, I think they suffer from something you and I have talked about before. What is the name of that syndrome or that derangement that goes around?
Trump deranged syndrome.
There you go, George. Thanks for bringing that up. Because that sure gets into these people's heads. And I mean, they lose it, George. They lose it. Trump derangement syndrome just has it's like something that gets into your brain.
It's in their soul. That's, it has anchored their soul. They are so angry and so just lost from reality. That's the thing.
Well, that you're exactly right. I mean, now, for example, I didn't vote for President Obama in 2008 or 2012. But when he took out Osama bin Laden, I didn't say he was a dictator. I applauded him. When he was taking out all these terrorists, using drones to take them out. And in some cases, by the way, as you know, we killed innocent people doing so.
Americans were killed.
That's right. At one point, yeah. I didn't sit there and say, gee, Obama has become a dictator. Now, I could criticize him, but I also could look out for the country. And when he did something good for the country, I gave him credit, like Osama bin Laden. But these people with Trump, it's like anything that Trump does, George, is wrong. It becomes hysterical.
And anti-American at the same time. I mean, it just is. It's absolutely insane.
I want to apologize to the audience because I turn off the mic when I blow my nose, but that's because I'm fighting allergies. So the audience Thank God for the mute button, because I can push the mute button and the audience doesn't have to hear me. But yes, I got some allergies fighting these days. But George, these people are it's almost to the point they're predictable.
Oh yeah,
And
they
and
are.
and,
Yeah.
and you just have to sit there and wonder, okay, all right, I mean, what if George, I mean, if Trump came out tomorrow morning and said, we've just discovered a cure for cancer, would they even give him credit for that? I don't think so. I mean, I don't know, but
I doubt it very seriously.
they figure that it was some kind of
They find a fault.
yeah. But the one I love, of course, is the one where they said he was going to put the troops on the streets and cancel the election. That was my favorite.
There you go.
That was my favorite. That's the one that wins the prize for Trump derangement syndrome craziness. But George, anything else on Venezuela that you wanted to add? I mean, I think of, well, one question, and quickly we can talk about this, and that is, what message is here from Mexico? Now,
Yeah.
I don't put Mexico and Venezuela in the exact situation. Okay,
No, but I'm not. I think it's not only for Mexico, although Mexico should get a very strong message. But all of these enemies of America, all of these ones that where they are facilitating criminals, terrorists, drugs into our country, I think they should all get a message here that we're not going to stand for it. That the president lifted his hand to take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, and by definition, the Constitution is the American people and our nation.
right.
And for them, for these dictators, gangsters, cartel gangs, whatever, for these folks to not have understood that they are now within gun range, they need to reassess themselves.
Yeah. I understand, George, that they are having a very difficult time recruiting people to ride those boats from
I
Venezuela
can't
to
imagine
wherever.
why.
Yeah, that all of a sudden everybody's calling in sick on the day that they have to ride the boat. They get an email saying, or a text saying, "Hey, you're due here tomorrow morning on boat number 6," and all of a sudden you call in sick and you say, "Look, I'm sorry, I don't feel well today. Can you get somebody else?" But I think those boats and those attacks have been awfully successful in sending the message.
Yeah.
But I actually think the other message that it also sends, Mexico is important, but I think some of the smaller countries too that are really victims to the narcos.
Yeah.
Because the narcos are stronger, like Ecuador. I think of Ecuador as an example, a small country that has been, battling this problem. And all of a sudden they know that Trump has their back. And I think that makes them feel a little bit safer. And that's a credit to Secretary Rubio. I tell you, I'll say this to close, George, but I think Secretary Rubio has just been fantastic. I don't know what else to say about him.
I have heard nothing but great compliments about him in the past 24 hours. And I agree. I think the way that he has explained himself, I think that the way that he has defended the president, the way that he has defended the action is very logical and very strong.
Absolutely. No, I think he's doing a great job. He's doing a great job in a region where we needed to do a better job.
Yes.
I mean, because I think Latin America has been somewhat overlooked, and it's our backyard. So, and think of all the economic potential that we have with Latin America. Countries that are, the resources, the markets. So I'm pleased that
there's going to be new respect for the United States. That's
that too. You cannot deny that. Well, George, what a way to get the year started, and with an amazing story about Venezuela. So we'll get back to some of our politics next time. But as always, thank you. And by the way, how was the Alamo Bowl? Did you attend it?
I did not this year, but the event was it was Southern Cal and TCU.
Right.
TCU, the Texas team, won. The home team won. So it was good. It was another success. There was a lot of discussion about the economic impact on the city. and what it means for 2026. And I think that things are looking very, very good when it comes to economics.
Yes, I agree with you, and I think San Antonio does a fantastic job for the Bowl. I've been there a couple of times, and there's something about San Antonio has a great charm. The city has a lot of charm, and it has all the advantages of a big city, but all the charm of a small town.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you can walk around so much, and it's one of those cities where you can do a lot of walking. That the area there by the river is absolutely beautiful. Everything about it is just very charming. So if I was looking for a place to have a Super Bowl, I might think about San Antonio. Has it ever been considered?
I don't think so, because number one, we don't have a stadium that's that large.
Oh, okay.
That's that large. So that's the biggest. But I think that eventually we probably will, and I would hope that we might be able to host one.
That stadium? Well, what is the capacity of that stadium?
The Alamo Bowl is 55,000.
Okay, well, but I mean, I always thought it could be more a question of hotel infrastructure than the size of the stadium.
Well, that too, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's also how much and on that aspect of it, we do lag behind major areas, major communities, like Houston, like Dallas, Fort Worth.
Right.
But I think that eventually it would happen. I'll tell you, the thing that is most probable is as San Antonio and Austin continue to grow together, I think eventually there will be a major stadium, major sports facility somewhere between the two of them, and at that point you will see all sorts of events being hosted here.
Well, and a Major League Baseball team, I'm sure, will find its way to that area because that's a big market. I mean, you have a AAA team and a AA team, I think, in San Antonio now.
AAA, mm-hmm.
AAA, okay, and I think there's a AA in Austin. But I think you're right.
That whole politics of it. Let me tell you, the politics of it is that we do have historically the two competing ownerships of the Astros and Rangers, and the Cowboys and the Texans. The AFL and the NFL and Major League Baseball both have. I'm not sure whether they have agreed or they have just politely said that they would support just keeping the two or the four.
Right. Well, my personal experience when I went to San Antonio a couple of times on business, it was during the baseball season. And it was easier to find the Houston Astros on radio than it was the Rangers. And just talking to people down there, apparently Houston was the first team in Texas. So they apparently, went to that market first. And there's a much larger following in San Antonio for the Astros than for the Rangers. That's what I understood.
It's 50 miles closer.
Yeah, exactly. And you also have to consider who got there first. And the Astros got there first. I mean, the Astros were playing in Houston 10 years before the Rangers came here. So that, you build up a lot of loyalty.
We get a huge number. I mean, again, if San Antonio and Austin, that metro area grows together,
right.
combines itself, I think that at that point you would have enough economic pull to outbid the other two. And to get a third.
Well, I know Major League Baseball is expanding, I believe, in a couple of years, and I would not be surprised at all if they look at that market, because it has tremendous. And look, you can put a baseball stadium up fairly quickly, a couple of years, and it wouldn't take that long for that to happen. But George, I do hope that, in fact, for a while there, George, I'll give you this little fantasy that I had when the Oakland A's were thinking of leaving Oakland. Eventually they went to Vegas.
Yeah.
But when they were thinking about leaving Oakland for lots of problems there, I said to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if they came to San Antonio, they're in the same division already. So you would have the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros, and the San Antonio A's in the same division. And the rivalry in the NBA between the Spurs, the Rockets, and the Mavericks was always a good rivalry. So I was thinking, wow, well, that would really be cool. Put the A's in Texas, and we would have this natural rivalry. But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But I do think that my prediction to you is that we will, over the next 2 to 3 years, do a Sunday show where we talk about a major league team coming to you're right, San Antonio, Austin. I think that's the perfect place for it, that location there. And they can be called the Central Texas team, probably. Yeah. All right, George, have a great week. Thank you as always for your time, and enjoy yourself, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Our good friend, George Rodriguez, talking a little bit about what happened in Venezuela and just in general, a few things there about the reaction of the Democrats who they just oppose everything that Trump does, even things that they had at one time supported. So it's Trump derangement syndrome. What else I can say? I mean, I don't know what else to say. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas. Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a good celebration, Christmas, and Happy New Year. And we'll get into a lot of politics here in 2026. It's election year, so we'll have a lot to talk about here in Texas in particular. Bye-bye, everybody, and good night from Dallas, Texas. Bye-bye, everybody.